Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey, and today we're talking Week 10 of the NFL. We are almost there in this fantasy season, only 3 more weeks after this, so we're really getting down to it. So hopefully you're still listening. If you're still listening, that means you're probably still in the running for the playoffs at least, which is a good thing. You'd be a lot different than Jeff, who is not in the running for the playoffs, at least in the main league. But
no, it's painful, but it's true.
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up all the time. But we'll do that. But no, it's all right. It's all right. He's still the champ. He has the trophy in his near vicinity to prove it. So, and he's gonna grab it right now and show you if you're on YouTube. Jeez.
No, I'm gonna keep it here because let's just enjoy our time, our last days together. All right, baby.
Yeah, exactly. All right. It is the last days of that trophy for you. So,
yeah, it really is. Let's just hope COVID cancels the whole season. I can keep her for another year.
I'm planning on getting it back. I know I'm one game out of the playoffs yet, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there.
I'll give you this before we go to the games. Craig has had an incredible playoff streak in our main league. It is dangerously close to coming to an end this year, but he has anteed up. He's trying to, he bought back in. He's trying to make that push, that run. He is dangerously close once again. So I'm kind of rooting for him, but not really, because all good things should come to an end, especially when, I'm out of it and I want the demise of everyone.
I'm 1 game out, but I'm really 2 games out because the tiebreak situation. So it's
it was a big week last week, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Only a couple weeks left, but getting into it.
Here we go. We'll talk about some games. We're gonna split these 2 up. Today we're gonna talk about 6 games. Tomorrow's episode we're gonna talk about the other 6. So we can go game by game here again and get some insight into everything going on. So let's start it off with a very exciting one. This is a great way to start the episode off. Browns Texans. What fun! 10-7. And this had a lot to do with the weather. This is what's hard to even really talk about because the weather was terrible there in Cleveland today. And because of that, it's just hard for really anything to get going. Except, I guess you could say, except for the Browns run game. That got going. Browns run game.
We knew it was really good. I think the only takeaway from this game, because I'm going to brush over it if you don't mind, but hey, you can't really tell too much about the QBs. And hey, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller have been doing extremely good lately. And they each went, 6 for 39, 5 for 38. They couldn't get it going. It really wasn't their fault. On the other side, once again, Mayfield couldn't do anything. The wide receivers couldn't do much. But, hey, Nick Chubb coming back in these kind of conditions and really showing off what he's able to do, 19 for 126 and a touchdown. And it'll show you just how much they ran the ball because Kareem Hunt, 19 carries as well for 104 yards. No touchdown, though. But Nick Chubb coming back and immediately contributing like that makes anyone that had Nick Chubb held on to him feel very, very good, very, very solid about him. He, even coming back like this, he was still, I would consider him the main dog. It was a 50-50 split. But I do think Chubb is just slightly better than Hunt. And I think this was good to see because the fear coming back was, all right, let's hold back. Let's give him 9 carries. Let's give 20 to Hunt. Let's, take it slow with him. But, if you're a fantasy owner, hey, let's step on the gas, see what this guy still has. So that is my only takeaway of this game.
Yeah, no, Chubb should have had 1 more touchdown, but he stepped out on the 1-yard line on purpose. So that's rough. Very rough if you had Chubb in your lineup. But yeah, those were the only takeaway. That was the only players that did much in this one because of how this game went, the weather-wise. Duke Johnson got the main work for Houston, but just not much going there. So it was, it's tough to talk about this one in to have any takeaways except that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are good, and they're going to probably lean on those guys. So, all
right, and to move on to the next one, I want to get your reaction really close because we haven't talked about our hometown, quote unquote, team, the Lions. So we're going to talk about Washington and the Lions here. Lions get the win by a last-second field goal. How do you feel about this win, and what do you chalk it up to?
It's another game where they almost blew a big lead. It's come on, Detroit. What's your problem? I don't know what it is. They get these leads and they almost blow it, and it takes Matt Prater kicking a 59-yard field goal, which probably could have been good from 70. My God, that guy's ridiculous. But It's the Lions.
Best player on the Lions.
I don't get. Yeah, it's been that way forever, right? It was Jason Hansen, and now it's Matt Prater. It doesn't change,
dude. It might be the Barry Sanders and then Hansen. Those would be my top 2 jerseys to get for Detroit.
But Detroit, they jump out to these leads and then they just almost lose it every time. I don't get it. It's strange. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if they just decide not to play anymore. It's weird, but. Hey, they're 4-5. That's not good, but they're just trying to give us the hope.
Yeah. So Washington, they aren't good, and I feel like they should do worse, right? But they kind of hang in there every once in a while with teams. Detroit is not a good team, but does it give is there more to Washington? And you can talk about the players here. Is there more to Washington than meets the eye? Is that why it was closer? Is that why they're sometimes able to hang in these games, or is it just teams? Taking them easily, hey, it's going to be an easy win. Let's not really try hard. What is it about this Washington team?
I mean, I don't really think they're that good, but they do have some good.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree.
They have a couple decent pieces to the team, at least with, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson. McKissick got himself a rushing touchdown today and 7 for 43.
I say, I know you're a bigger fan of McKissick because there is value to him. But every time, I swear to God, every time you bring him up, which it feels like every week now for waivers because they're that thin, he does something. It doesn't even have to be big, but he gets in the end zone. He does something to make his stuff worthwhile.
PPR wise, it's just a lot better with those 7 catches. He's really killing it there. But I think I like this with Alex Smith. I actually like the team a little better. I like it for McLaurin better. I like it for some of these guys better with Alex Smith. Yeah, I feel better about their chances.
And he's interesting, right? Because he was the guy we talked about last week. And I said, hey, I really like Alex Smith. And I was talking about McLaurin at the time, right? And I was wrong. I'll just say I was wrong. But 7 receptions for 95 yards. And my thought was, hey, Alex Smith is a good quarterback. He can be. He was in the league at one point. He was not, he wasn't going to be throwing 3 touchdowns a game. He's not that type of quarterback, but he's good. And I was kind of wondering, I don't know where he's at. Obviously, this was a come from behind win. Detroit was up by a lot. So he threw the ball 55 times. And I don't, they could be down that much, but it does look like immediately he is a sharp quarterback. How does that bolster everyone on the team like you're talking about? Are you just automatically saying, yeah, they're good? McLaurin is good. Antonio Gibson is better. Is there anyone else on this team that is worthwhile the look with Alex Smith, even though he didn't throw a touchdown, but he did have 390 yards, no interceptions, a very solid game.
Logan Thomas might become more interesting now at tight end with how weak tight end is. He did get 6 targets today, caught 4 for 66. I think he could become a little more interesting because they're going to be down in a lot of games. They're going to have to throw the ball like this. So he's going to get targets. McLaurin's going to be the main guy, though. This just solidifies McLaurin for me as a pretty solid wide receiver 2 option. And I feel really comfortable with it. Much, much better than I did back in the Dwayne Haskins days. I'll say that.
Yeah. I was going to say, if there's the only other one is, hey, on the other side, the one guy I want to talk about first is Deandre Swift.
Finally.
Finally. What is your takeaway on him having and I won't even say it was like a breakout game, but it was very, very solid because he did it both rushing and catching the ball. What stood out?
149 total yards, got himself a touchdown. And it wasn't even that. I thought he had this in him, but it's finally the 16 carries to 4 carries split between him and Adrian Peterson. Finally. That is what we've been waiting for. And I think we talked about this how many times. We knew this day would come, right? This day would come at some point. And finally it did. And Adrian Peterson is pretty good for his age at this point, I'll say. He's not a bad back, but Deandre Swift is he's good. He's really good. And they needed to get him the chance to play like this. And what I love the most about it is his receiving. He's getting catches. He's getting yards that way. He's going to be a good fantasy player here. And people like me who have him as a cheap keeper next year feel really good.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those ones you love coming at the end of the year because the whole time you're like, oh, shoot, I'm not going to be able to keep him. I don't know what he's going to do next year. Who knows? It's, whatever it's going to be. I almost, I think it just took him a little longer to get into the rhythm, especially with the disjointed, offense, which is the Detroit Lions. But I do think that game 1, I still blame him dropping the touchdown that would have won the game It kind of like at his downfall, because I think if he catches that, he starts off on such a good foot, and they went the opposite way immediately, almost like, here, let's go for the veteran, let's do this, and then obviously Detroit sucks, but it is good to see him do both. I mean, I really do think he's a dynamic player. I hope that they continue to use him like this. How confident are you that it's going to be this kind of split between Deandre Swift and Adrian Peterson? Because people are going to be wondering, can I put him in my lineup, other than a flex position, and expect him to get 15 carries a game and him to be the primary back? Can you safely say that now?
I want to say yes, actually. I mean, it was even before this game, they did announce that he was going to be the starter finally. It was the first time they've announced that. And I think that was their changing of the guard here. I think that was, it wasn't just them saying, oh, he's going to get the start. But it truly meant it. He got the start, and he was the starter. He was the lead back. And I honestly believe that this is going to continue. He is the best option they have, the best chance they have to win there. And at this point, Matt Patricia needs to win. He doesn't need to play these stupid games anymore. Win. You have to win with your best players, and he's their best running back. So
without a doubt. Otherwise, Swift will be used by a different head coach come next year.
It still might be.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. Other than that, just to give you a quick rundown, Matthew Stafford had a good game. He threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 276 yards. He threw those passes one to Deandre Swift, which is once again what we talked about, Marvin Hall, and then Marvin Jones.
Solid game for Marvin Jones.
Again, he's actually without Galladay in the lineup, they definitely targeted him in the red zone a lot. So he has turned into kind of a sneaky flex play at times. Other than that, is there not really anything to write home about? Hawkinson had a low point where we thought if they threw it this much, he's been sneaking up everyone's tight ends rankings, but they're so shallow that is the reason why. It's not necessarily because he got a high volume. He only caught 2 catches for 13 yards. He only targeted 4 times. He's going to be up and down. I don't think that you can ever completely rely on him, but he is a young talent that I think will need another year, maybe 2, in my opinion, before he could turn into a every game lock and load, someone of that first tier caliber that is very, very shallow right now, right? I don't think he's going to be Kelsey, but Kelsey, Kittle, one of those guys. I mean, but
you look at players like Kelsey who took the first couple of years, Kelsey wasn't Kelsey. Like, it happens at the tight end position all the time.
I always think back, and this is kind of dating me, but I always think back of Vernon Davis, who was a very high draft pick that went to, was it San Fran?
Yeah.
And he was a freak athlete, and it still took him like 3-4 years before he really became, Vernon Davis and played really, really well. But you take him this high, and it's very difficult for a tight end, especially because you're thinking produce right away. Gronk is pretty much the only tight end I've ever seen produce immediately, and even he needed like 1 year to really get into it. Exactly. Unless, But anyway, enough about tight ends.
All right, how about Packers Jacksonville here? Packers barely pulled this one off. Not the greatest performance for them, but 24-20 win. And so because of it, Rodgers was fine, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. Solid game from him there, but he ran one in, which made his day pretty well. Aaron Jones didn't do a lot. It was at least from the ground game. He gets the receptions, though, so it keeps him not quite 100 yards, but that's where, pretty solid there. No touchdowns, but it was mainly Valdez-Scantling here. Four catches for 149, boosted by a 78-yarder with the touchdown there. So big day for Valdez-Scantling. Adams gets himself a touchdown, 8 for 66. So they didn't win by a lot. They didn't play that great, but this is still actually a decent fantasy output for most of them. Even Jones. Jones was the worst case, and he was in standard scoring. He's still 9.5 points, which isn't great, but you'll take it, if that's as bad as it'll get. But Valdez-Scantling, big game there. No Allen Lazard yet. We still think Allen Lazard will be back next week. But if he is, I don't know what it means for Valdez-Scantling. Valdez-Scantling does this stuff. Who knows? He's so untrustworthy. He's not trustworthy yet.
Yeah, that was going to be my question because, when it comes to waivers, people are going to see that giant game and they're going to say, well, I'm going to grab him. Something's going on. How do you feel about that? Obviously, I don't feel good about it at all. I would not pick him up personally.
No, I guess he's probably an option, but I don't love that at all because we've seen this from Valdez-Scantling. This isn't a new thing from him, and it's not necessarily next week he goes 1 for 3 or something. It's just not consistent enough. So, I mean, I'd shy away from picking him up. I just wouldn't do it.
Right.
But Jacksonville side of things, really not much fantasy relevance here except for James Robinson again, 109 yards on the ground. No touchdowns today, but 109 on the ground, only 3 receiving, but 112 total yards. He just keeps, getting it done. And he has literally all the volume for Jacksonville. They had 23 carries. They all go to James Robinson. And that's what you love to see. Chark, 4 for 56. Keelan Cole at 5 for 47. Caught a touchdown, and he actually got a punt return for a touchdown as well. Jacksonville, though, it's pretty much James Robinson. You start him every week. And then the rest of the guys, I still don't. DJ Chark, a lot of situations, I still feel like you probably have to start him, but I don't really feel comfortable with it. And hopefully you don't have to start him, actually. I'll say that. He gets ranked as like a 2 or a 3 most weeks, but it just doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I would consider him. And I like DJ Chark. I believe.
Yeah, I do too.
In the talent, we saw what he could do last year. It's just, once again, and also the QB situation, right? I mean, was Luke who's a QB that started for Jacksonville?
Luton.
I like how I know it's Luke. Yeah. Stoltenstein. Anyway, but hey, I can't trust him. He would be a kind of a wide receiver 3 for me, a flex play perhaps. I do think he has touchdown upside still, but I can't trust him whatsoever. No. And it's too bad. He was one of a guy that I thought was being undervalued, but for the reason that, hey, what is your team going to do? Yeah.
All right. How about Giants-Eagles? Giants win 27-17. Wow. This NFC East is just terrible. They're it's a really bad division. The Eagles are still first place in that division at 3-5-1.
Mind blowing.
It's crazy. It's bad. For the Giants, Daniel Jones threw for 244, no touchdowns there, but he ran one in. So, and 64 yards on the ground. Wayne Gallman ran 2 in. So if you played Wayne Gallman just out of necessity, he gets you 53 yards, but he runs 2 in. It's a pretty solid day there for you. How about that?
Dude, Wayne Gallman has been someone that I got lucky with, and I had to start him 1 week, and I just kept going. But he has been incredibly productive, and I won't say, spectacular or anything like that, but they're using him and he's getting in the end zone. The last few games he's had at least 1 touchdown in the last 4 games. Yeah. Do you keep using Wayne Gallman? It doesn't seem like anything they do is going away from him. How safe do you feel about putting him in as a flex or to, kind of buoy that running back committee that a lot of people have that, probably got hit by injury this year?
I think he can be a solid flex at this point. Again, he's not great, but he is the guy they'll use on the goal line. He gets the touchdowns, and sometimes that's all you need, right? That's what you look for. So
you gotta love the numbers too, because I'll just start when he started playing, right? He got 10 attempts for 34 yards and a touchdown, 12 for 44 and a touchdown. So, and once again, this is a very consistent through line because the yardage is not huge, but he always gets 1 touchdown, 14 for 68 and a touchdown. And today, 18 for 53 and 2 touchdowns. So the average of the running back is very inconsistent, but at the same time, 10 to 12, 14 to 18. He just keeps trending in the right direction of how many attempts they give him. And I don't care if the guy is only averaging 2.9 carries, or 2.9 yards per carry. If the guy is getting goal line carries, Rich will make that go down anyway. But if he gets in twice, I don't care, man. Mike Allstott back in the day, I don't care if you have 1 yard if you have 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
It makes it worthwhile.
Yep. Receivers today for the Giants, Slayton 5 for 93, 6 for 47 for Shepard, and Evan Ingram disappoints with 2 for 15. So that's why you don't trust Evan Ingram at this point. For the Eagles, man, this team just is a disappointment all around, right? Wentz, nothing going for Wentz. 208, 21 to 37 for 208, no touchdowns. Just not good.
It was bad today.
Sanders, 15 or 85. He was fine with the 85 yards on the ground, 10 receiving, but 9.5 standard. I mean, it's fine. You would like to get a touchdown that went to Boston Scott and went to Corey Clement. You'd like those to go to Miles Sanders, but hey, it is what it is. And then the receiving thing, Travis Fulgham, we thought he was becoming a player, and he goes 1 for 8. Dallas Goedert only 4 for 33. Jalen Reagor 4 for 47. The leading receiver with yardage was Richard Rodgers 4 for 60. Just not a good game. This Eagles team just isn't that good.
No. And that's the saddest part about all this. If I just go to Dallas Goedert, is for a stat line of 4 for 33. And I believe in my ranks, I had him like fourth or third or fourth because I just don't trust anyone. And even with that, he still did better than Evan Ingram, and he did better than Hawkinson, and he did better than a lot of these guys that might have gotten ranked above him. And
That's
that
true.
is how thin tight end is this year. I just want to point out. So even though he did not do well, he's still going to be, relatively high.
Well, speaking of like how bad tight end is, it's actually in this next game. We're going to talk Bucs Panthers. They have a tight end named Colin Thompson who caught 1 touchdown, 1 catch for 7 yards. He got a touchdown. He was number 10 last I saw in the ranks for the week. So,
great.
1 target, and catches 1 target for 7 yards, and he's the number 10 tight end for the week. But so the Bucs beat up on the Panthers here, 46-23. Wow, that was a way to come back from last week's just ugliness against the Saints, which just still really doesn't make sense after you watch this game. Brady really bounced back in 28 for 39, 341, 3 touchdowns, and ran one in as well. He's been putting up last week was so bad, but he's put up a lot of these big games like this. So he's the top quarterback for the week as of right now. And just a really good week for Tom Brady. And then he's not the only one. Ronald Jones gets 23 for 192 and a touchdown, bolstered by his 98-yarder, which was ridiculous. But even without it, though, he had almost 100 yards. Sorry.
I was just saying, it's still a good day for him. And let's be honest, the split between him and Fournette was getting very close. And Fournette only got 8 carries for 19 yards. I do have to say, Ronald Jones desperately needed this in order to put some breathing room between him and RB number 2. Yeah. Ronald Jones is still the go-to guy. You'll never be able to tell whether or not he's going to have a big game. This is going to be the dangerous part about having him now, though. He could have this big one, but look at the weapons and what Brady was able to accomplish. We thought maybe we'd see this last week. We did not. This week, they got up a ton, right? I mean, 341, 3 touchdowns, and the people he's throwing these to, first of all, his 2 tight ends, right? So they're both going to be up there, but Cameron Brate and Rob Gronkowski. Thank God Gronkowski is starting to show up. He's catching a touchdown, it feels like, every game now. And then the other touchdown went to Mike Evans. And then the other 2, Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown. I mean, Chris Godwin went 6 for 92, Antonio Brown 7 for 69. They didn't get a touchdown, but obviously they're still relevant, especially in PPR. I mean, with those 5 guys that you can throw it to, how much do you believe in Rojo or Leonard Fournette and going forward, even though Rojo had this huge game? Because you got to start wondering, what mouths do they feed first?
I was starting to worry about Ronald Jones, obviously, but I think a game like this is what gets, lets them, he's going to be the guy here. Last 2 weeks, he's not really done. My last 3 weeks, his carries are starting to go. But I think in a game like this, I think sometimes could just change the tide on things and give him a chance here. So he gets Rams next, Kansas City. The part that really sucks about having the Bucs players is that week 13 bye. That's frustrating. But I think Fournette hasn't proved anything these last couple weeks. So there hasn't been anything from Fournette to say that he needs to take away this workload from Jones. It's just not happening. So I feel comfortable with Jones. I mean, at this point, I guess, you're starting Jones, you're starting Godwin, you're starting Evans, you're starting Brown, you're starting Gronk, right? I think you're starting all these guys. Or maybe Brown. I think Brown's going to be there. I mean, for game 2, he's back and gets 7 for 69 in only his second game back after a year and a half. I feel pretty confident that he's going to start. It's going to start getting better and better.
Oh man, really, he had the second most amount of targets too. Yep. I mean, behind Mike Evans, who had 11, then it was Antonio Brown with 8. Actually, that was a very interesting one. It was like, Mary F. Kill, but it was Godwin, Evans, Brown. How do you feel about them finishing out the year? Who would you actually want? Who are you, like, the guaranteed starter? Yeah, why don't we do that? This is a dumb game to play right in the middle, but why don't we go? Why don't we go start, bench, trade? This is so stupid, but okay. Why not? I'll see where this goes.
This is tough, man. I just said that about Brown, but I don't know if I want to start him yet. Man, this is the toughest. These ones are extremely tough. You know what? Give me a second. Let me think about this here. I'm leaning towards I'm still leaning towards benching Brown only because we just need to see, even though I think it's coming, I think he's gonna start really playing well. I just need a little bit more yet from Brown to see it. So I'll keep him on my bench yet. I think I would start Godwin actually and trade Evans, because Evans to me is still volatile in more of a touchdown way. And that's where I start to get there with Evans is I feel like he's still more, I don't feel as comfortable with him. Godwin has been back for 2 weeks now. And last week was his first week back. He didn't do a lot. And then he gets 6 for 92. And he showed before he would get more targets and catches usually than Evans. Evans had more targets this week, but Evans, for some reason, there's something about him. I feel like I'm waiting for that 1 for 2 game again. And
yeah,
I think I want to get value from Evans. I think you can still get some good value from him. This is a tough one, but I think I'd start Godwin and bench Brown and trade Evans right now. But I think you can make an argument for a bunch of different ways in this one. Honestly, that's how close these guys are.
Yeah, without doubt. I think this might be the first time where I could see a spot where I could start 3 wide receivers on one team. I don't know if I've ever had that before.
It's getting close to that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So how about the Panthers side of things? Teddy Bridgewater, 136 through the air, 2 touchdowns, ran one in. He got hurt in this one. We don't really know the status of that yet. We'll wait and see what happens there. Mike Davis, only 7 carries, 32 yards, 4 catches, 12 yards. We'll see if McCaffrey's back next week. That'd probably be good for the Panthers. DJ Moore gets his normal 4 catches for 90-some yards. Gets a touchdown, though, this week. That is DJ Moore's stat line all day long, isn't it? I mean, he has done that so many times. That's what he does. And he gets a touchdown this week to make it more worthwhile. Robbie Anderson disappointed, though, 4 for 21. So, and Curtis Samuel started to get a little Curtis Samuel hype there the last couple of weeks, and he really comes out with nothing. Nothing from him. So that ended the Curtis Samuel hype, right? I think that's gone. So, all right, how about this will be the final one we talk about today here. Raiders, Broncos. Raiders beat up on the Broncos here 37-12. Derek Carr didn't really do much at all. He didn't have to. He only, just didn't have to. It was just the way the game worked. And they ran the ball 21 times with Jacobs for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the game was out of hand, and they're using Devontae Booker, who goes 16 for 81 and 2 touchdowns. So Devontae Booker has been actually done this a few times lately, which is getting, last week he had 8 for 68 and a touchdown. So they're using him as well. Like, he's almost at this point, Jacobs owners should go pick up Devontae Booker for a handcuff at this, I think, right now.
I was going to say, there's only a few valuable handcuffs anymore. I
think he's one of them.
Unbelievably, Devontae Booker is one of them.
Yes, I think if you're a Jacobs owner, you need to go pick up Devontae Booker at this point. You really would have liked those touchdowns to go to Jacobs, those extra touchdowns, but hey, he had plenty. He had enough. He had enough for the day. The receivers didn't do much because they just didn't have to. This was out of hand, and they just ran the ball. So it's hard to really get anything from this. Waller 3 for 37, Ruggs 3 for 31. So really not much to go from the Raiders. They're 6-3 though. That's pretty impressive for John Gruden there. I think he's got them playing pretty well.
Yeah, I think they're a pretty solid team.
Yeah. Broncos are not very, very good, I feel like, at this point. Drew Lock, 257 yards, a touchdown, but 4 picks. You start looking to play your defenses against Drew Lock, I guess, and the Broncos here.
No, he had a good game last week, and he was one of the names that we floated as like a deep streaming option, possibly. It did not, and it's kind of a strange one. I mean, this is going to be one of those games he really wants to take back. 4 interceptions, I don't care how you cut it, is just terrible. And Jerry Judy, even though he had that big game last week, we're wondering if that could continue, even though obviously with 4 interceptions doesn't leave you a lot of wiggle room. But even with that, he did have 4 for 68. He was targeted 8 times. It does seem that he is a guy that is up and coming, which is good to see. Jerry Judy, if people lost faith, he might be out there on the waiver wire for some people. If not, if he's on your bench, he might become useful. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to kind of play out. They're not going away from Drew Lock, obviously. I think he's going to be very volatile. He's going to be very up and down, all over the place. So that is going to be the driving force behind him and the wide receivers. And they do have Tim Patrick as well, 4 for 61. he catches touchdowns and he kind of has this. I don't think anyone's going to get a huge amount of catches on this team. It just doesn't really work like that. One more thing that was good to see, KJ Hamler. He is a speedster that was in the draft, and we were kind of waiting to find out how they're going to use him. Finally, I mean, this is a weird game, right? Because they're throwing the ball a lot, but he finally got a lot of targets kind of out of nowhere. So he got 10 targets. He only caught 4 of them for 50 yards. He doesn't need a lot, though, in order to make it worthwhile. And he was finally kind of getting past some of these guys that, like Deshaun Hamilton and people that were kind of on that next tier. So I think he's finally taking his place in the offense. So he's going to be an interesting one to watch. I don't think I would pick him up on waivers yet, but he is one of the last people left on waivers where I'm kind of like, okay, let's wait and see. Let's find out if he's worth something. My question to you is going to be about the running back situation.
Yeah. So
we talked about how we were not confident on Melvin Gordon the rest of the year.
I'm not at all.
How do you feel about this? It didn't look overly bad. He didn't get to run a lot, but 11 for 46, and no one else really got a whole lot of, carries. Philip Lindsay did get 4 carries, only turned into 2 yards. How do you use their running backs moving forward?
I don't want to use the running backs going forward. I just don't. I don't want to use Melvin Gordon unless I'm forced to because of bye weeks and he's in my flex. I don't want to play him. I want to, and hopefully he's in your flex, and I'd like to find a receiver somewhere. I just don't want to play them. I don't want to play these running backs. And Melvin Gordon, I mean, you just don't know if he's going to do anything. So the last week he was 6 for 18. So what was it? This week, let's say he was 11 for 46, no catches. Last week he was 6 for 18, 1 catch for 9 yards. The week before, 8 for 26. He had 6 catches, so in PPR, sure, it's a little better, but only 21 yards. Even his good week then against Kansas City was 17 for 68 and a touchdown. So he was playing better early on in the year. Then they had the bye, then he missed the game. And since he's come back from that, he's just not been any good. And I don't want to play him. I don't want to play him. He's playing against Miami next week. Miami's been pretty good, actually. New Orleans, at Kansas City. I don't want to play this guy. And him and Le'Veon Bell have just put a blueprint together on how to ruin your career by holding out. Like come on, guys. Think you're better than you are. You hold out. You want all this money. You don't get all the money. You leave your team where you're in a good situation, and you suck. So there you go. How about that?
Yeah. Well, it could still work out for Bell. He might get all that money, and he might win a title. Who knows? We'll find out.
True. But all right, that'll do it then. You know what? I feel kind of disappointed this week. The Cowboys haven't played, so I haven't got to say Mike McCarthy's a moron yet. But there we go. I got it in.
Take your time, yeah.
I got it in, so I just want to get that in before the end of this episode. But all right, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. We got the other 6 games we haven't talked about. Actually, maybe 7. Maybe 7. We also have Patriots. As we talk right now, Patriots, Ravens are still playing too. So we'll talk a little bit about that one as well. But that'll be it for today. Talk to you guys tomorrow.